Pumps and Systems podcast. I'm your host, Drew Champlin, managing editor of Pumps and Systems magazine. You can visit us on the web at pumpsandsystems.com. Today, we're going to talk inline pumping benefits with Jim Huck of Industrial Flow Solutions. Jim was also selected as one of our 10 up-and-coming pump professionals to watch, and he's featured in our December 2022 issue, which you can visit online right now if you go to digital.pumpsandsystems.com if you don't have a print copy, or go to pumpsandsystems.com/subscribe if you want a print copy. We'll ask Jim some questions related to his time in the industry and about how he is connected to one of the greatest NBA basketball players of all time in LeBron James. But that'll be for later in the podcast. We're going to hit pump basics first. Search for our podcast and subscribe on any podcast platform such as Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Industrial Flow Solutions is the sponsor of our podcast. Visit them on the web at flowsolutions.com. And you will hear more about them a few minutes in. So let's bring in Jim Huck to the podcast. Jim, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, Drew, and yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you taking some time. Before we talk about inline pumping, tell us a little bit about yourself and your position with Industrial Flow Solutions and any other pertinent info you want to share.
Yeah. So at Industrial Flow Solutions, I'm the business development manager for a really cool product, which we're going to talk about today, the Overwatch direct inline pumping system. So I'm looking over the basic business structure for that, right? Product development, sales and marketing, trying to bring this new and innovative, very disruptive technology to the market. And it's really exciting times for us here at Industrial Flow Solutions.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of doing a lot of demos these days. There's a lot of YouTube videos of you showing off the product as well, and we'll have an ad read about Industrial Flow Solutions a few minutes into this podcast. But let's talk about some of the basic pumping terms, technologies, maybe a little related to this. Inline pumping. Inline pumping is a big part of what you guys do, but what is inline pumping on a basic level?
Yeah, so the basis is very simple, right? So we take a very different approach to managing a pump lift station. Okay, so typical pumps today are going to fill a basin, some sort of retention collection vessel, and it's going to be actuated by pumps in that basin. So it's going to be actuated by different levels, different elevations, right? What we recognize is we look at the root cause of pump failures is the idea of us detaining liquid for a period of time, allowing those solids, fats, oils, and grease, fibrous materials, and everything to separate from that pump liquid. And in direct line pumping, very simply, if we can keep everything moving, keep everything in solution, right, where we don't get this separation, coagulation, solidification effect, we can manage lift stations a lot more effectively than we do today. And so that's the real gist of inline pumping and getting rid of the wet wells. A lot of people know who work in this industry. The wet well is a challenge, right? It comes with a lot of other maintenance issues, nuisance issues, and the fact that we have a technology that can now adapt to that in real time and keep liquid moving is a real game changer for our industry.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about wet wells as well in the podcast. Another basic question for you, Jim. What causes pumps to clog, and why do these clogged pumps need to be replaced sooner rather than later, or do they need to be replaced?
Yeah, great question, right? So pumps themselves are actually pretty dynamic and pretty awesome machines, right? They can manage a fair amount of fibrous materials when it's kind of metered over time, right? You talk about a single rag, you talk about a little bit of fats, oils, and grease, right? A pump typically doesn't have issues with one rag or two rags. The pump has issues when we get multiple rags that come into environment and congeal with other rags with the help of fats, oils, and grease, right? So those bigger monsters, or the term that we like to use in the industry called fatbergs, right? Pumps are not built to manage fatbergs. So that's what causes pumps to fail, right? Larger items that we're not used to seeing with a pump eventually going to be inserted in the suction of the pump, and the pump there is not able to manage it at that time.
Yeah, we had a big picture of a fatberg on our September 2017 issue of Pumps and Systems, and that was finished right as I was interviewing for this job. And so I remember my CEO saying that, hey, you may not want to work for us anymore after you see this, but I saw it and I was like, that's pretty cool. I'd love to. Can't wait to get some content on how to get rid of fatbergs and how to not what to not do to cause fatbergs, which I guess flushable wipes is one of those, right, Jim? Don't
Yeah.
flush wipes down the toilet.
Yep, you got it. You got it.
All right. Well, what are some of the other problems to a system or a lift station that would lead to someone needing inline pumping?
Yeah, so we mentioned fatbergs as being an issue, right? It's that separation, it's the coagulation of the fats, oils, and grease that kind of a byproduct from us cooking or restaurants and things like that. Wipes, we understand the challenges of wipes. Again, it's not one, it's many that come in the environment that adhere to those fats, oils, and greases that cause problems. The other problem that we typically see with wet wells is when you get stagnation for a certain period of time, you get odor, right? You get that nasty smell, that egg smell that we're all very aware of, right? You walk down in a park, a hiking trail, and you smell it, and you know exactly what that is, right? It's sewage, and the direct inline pumping system. The way we're going to manage this odor, this H2S gas, is we're going to constantly keep it contained. And because we're not letting it detain for a period of time, we're going to keep the sort of chemistry right in the sewage to make sure that we don't get that anaerobic breakdown that causes smells. People that are looking to reduce maintenance around odor, reduce maintenance around ragging. And you would also want to look at the Overwatch direct inline pumping technology when you have obstacles in excavation, right? So if you're in an area with a high water table or hardened bedrock, and digging is going to be a challenge. One of the things with the Overwatch is because we're not retaining all that volume that is used for operation of the pumps, we don't have to dig these massively deep or massively wide pits anymore. They can be much smaller. So there's tremendous advantages in construction as well with the technology.
It's time to hear a word from our sponsor. Industrial Flow Solutions, or IFS, headquartered in New Haven, Connecticut, USA, specializes in the design, manufacturing, sales, and service of wastewater pumps and controls, including Overwatch Direct Inline Pump System, BJM Pumps, StanCore, Oilminder, and D-Ragger brands. With over 200 years of technical and application experience and a focus on turning customers' flow problems into flow solutions, IFS products lower costs, increase efficiencies, and minimize the environmental impact. The Overwatch Direct Inline Pump System by IFS is a breakthrough technology designed to lift influent at the point of entry, eliminating the wet well. Influent is contained, eliminating odors and reducing maintenance. The smart sensing system adjusts in real time to manage flow and avoid clogs. Downtime from clogged pumps is virtually eliminated. And the stainless steel body is designed to withstand the effects of corrosion from harsh materials and solutions, making Overwatch an ideal solution for the municipal, industrial, and commercial industries. Most importantly, the Overwatch Direct Inline Pump System eliminates hazards associated with a well, and the result is a safer working environment for maintenance crews. Overwatch is changing the world one wet well at a time. For more information, visit www.flowsolutions.com, where you can learn more about IFS brands and connect with their experts. Now we will return you to the podcast.
Yeah, it seems like we're talking a lot about wastewater here. We met up with you at WEF Tech, and you guys did a promotional video with us that's going to be online about your product soon. Is wastewater, is it the main application that's used with inline pumping, or are there more?
Yeah, so what we really excel at is wastewater solids management, whether or not that's municipal wastewater or industrial wastewater. Anytime that you're seeing fats, oils, and greases, fibrous materials, solids that come in the environment, that's where we play in well.
Okay. And you mentioned the wet well a little bit earlier. Help me out a little bit here. I know it's a big thing in the industry. What exactly is the wet well? what can inline pumping do to eliminate the wet well? Why are wet wells a problem? I know you mentioned smell earlier, and what are some ways to get around it?
Yeah, so wet wells have been used, since almost like the beginning of time, right? We know that liquid flows by gravity, right? And eventually it's gonna flow to a low point, and at that low point you have to lift it to another high point for it to flow to gravity again, right? So you think back to Mesopotamian times, it was pretty much buckets and ropes, right? They had a low point,
Mhm.
they used a bucket, they lowered it down in the hole. They poured up water. They poured it onto another slope and allowed it to continue on. Our collection systems today are kind of built on the same principles, but yes, yet we use pumping to lift. And all the low-lying areas in our collection network, or sewage collection network, or stormwater collection network, there needs to be something that does that manual lift. So these wet wells are essentially massive pits that can fill up with liquid. And over the last 50 years, the submersible pump technology, which Industrial Flow Solutions also makes, has been the preferred pump method. Right? You put the submersible pump down in the water. It's actuated by floats, so a low level to turn off and a high level to turn on. And so we're maintaining these huge wet wells to operate these pumps and to lift liquid to higher levels.
All right. Well, I guess wrapping up the inline pumping discussion, what are the big advantages as it relates to inline pumping, or as it relates to maintenance, when you bring in inline pumping to the mix?
Yeah, so really, as far as maintenance goes, the inline pumping system is a huge benefit, right? So when we talk about getting rid of the wet well, that is the source of a lot of maintenance teams' time, right? They have to come and make sure that floats. We've talked about floats a couple times here, right? The fats, oils, and grease hang up on floats. Those floats become heavier. They possibly become tangled with each other, right? So they don't actuate appropriately like they should. Those fats, oils, and grease, again, that we mentioned, they may coagulate as fatbergs or balls, but they also can coagulate around the edges of the basin wall, right, creating like a ring around the wall. These things from fat constantly need to be cleaned, or they create problems. And so by us maintaining the liquid, or retaining that liquid inside of our system, those fats, oils, and greases can't fall out of solution. They're going to come to the pump, and they're going to be simply passed right away. Another maintenance perspective, right? If you have a system that has an odor compression system on it today, with our system, because we keep that influent contained, we don't have any odors. So, a lot of odor compression systems not only have their own controls that need to be maintenance, but maybe there's some additives that need to be metered into liquid to keep it kind of neutralized to stop that smell. And the last big maintenance piece that we solve with the Overwatch technology is, we talked about H2S gas, right? H2S gas is not only very deadly, but it's very erosive, and it'll go in and tear apart, get through the concrete pores and start attacking the metal structure of the basin, start attacking the metal piping in that structure, pump rails, all that stuff. And it can be very damaging. And the fact that, again, we're going to keep that influent contained in the pipeworks means that those concrete basins now can last virtually forever. And that piping can also last now forever. And so it's a huge benefit from a maintenance perspective. And we have testimonies of customers who have used this technology where, they've had maintenance of, 26 hours allocated to a particular lift station. And over the last 5 years, only 20 minutes of maintenance. We have a promotional video you can check on our YouTube. The gentleman talks about that he forgot about his wet well, right? That is a huge statement, that this lift station was such a nuisance for him. He spent so much time maintaining this wet well, and now over the course of 5 years, he forgot that he had that lift station. Is just unbelievable. It's remarkable.
Man, it's great to hear. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I know we have a lot of younger engineers, end users who listen to this podcast, and so we were going to we'll see how they can relate to maybe your path in the industry, in the pump industry. So, the first question I have for you is how and why are you in this industry and in your current area of expertise? What's the path you took to get to where you are?
Yeah, so I'm an ME by degree. I've always been in the technical sales aspect. Not always in the water wastewater world, but I've kind of always been in the process industry. So, I've always worked in around this industry, but not necessarily immersed in this industry. And being involved in a wide range of different markets from mining, oil and gas, metals. You find that the water industry is very unique. One, it's a constant investment from everybody involved. Everyone from our public officials. Everyone is interested in improving water. So this industry is just so much fun, and the collaboration that you get between competitors and associates alike. We're all kind of pulling for each other because we all know how important water is. So when I had an opportunity to get into this environment, lead a new product into this market, it was a slam dunk for me. Super excited to be doing this.
Yeah, my next question was going to be, what do you like best about working in this industry? But it seems like you just answered that pretty well. Is there anything else you would want to add to that?
No, just to reiterate, I
Yeah.
mean, we have competitors, no doubt, and if someone has a unique technology that is better, we're all in for the betterment of water, right? The betterment of the world, and we know how difficult it is. We're fortunate here in the country that we live in that water is not so big of a challenge. I know we have certain communities that have struggled to get clean water, but there's other parts of the world that just have a bigger problem than we do. And the fact that we're trying to do something that is making life better is just awesome.
Yeah. Well, what do you find most challenging in the industry?
This industry typically moves slow and very reserved. While there is money coming in now from our government officials to help support some of these very expensive projects, typically spending money on wastewater is not the sexy thing to do, right? People don't recognize right away when a municipality improves their force mains, right? You almost think of that as a nuisance, right? You're like, oh, there's construction on my street. It's annoying. They make so much noise. There's dust, right? But you don't understand what these individuals are doing to improve your life and everyone in that community's life. I mean, you recognize right away when they pave your street, and you like that. But the fact that you get clean water all the time, we almost take for granted. And I think that's the toughest part, is that what we do is kind of like behind the scenes, right? No one's out there really rooting for us other than the people who are associated with this industry.
All right. Well, along those lines, what advice would you give to a student considering this industry or a newcomer wanting to get into the industry?
Yeah. So, if you want to work in an industry where you're going to feel good about what you're doing, right? This is one to come to. If you want to make a difference in the environment, you want to make a difference in the world we live in, the community you live in, this is the one to go to. If you're looking for acclimates, from doing great things that everyone's going to recognize, this is probably not the industry to go into, right? What we do is kind of behind the scenes, but very, very important and tremendously fun.
All right. Well, what has you most excited about the future of the industry?
What really has me excited is, our current political environment. Depending on what side of the fence you're on, depending on whatever country you're in, we all recognize that we only have one Earth to live on. And we all recognize this global warming and the challenge that it's going to create for water. No matter who you are, or no matter what industry you live in, or wherever you live, we're starting to get more people that understand that water is so important. And this industry, as we continue to gain this energy around water, this is just really fun times, some fun times to be here. And I can't imagine, as I get older, getting more involved with this, start teaching my kids more about the importance of water. I think this is really going to be a really exciting time for all of us in this industry.
All right. Well, what do you do to make sure you're continuing your education and training? Because it seems like there's always stuff you gotta learn and need to know in your industry.
You know what? It's staying connected. These trade shows, expos, water associations that each state has, region has, small communities have. Um, it's important to get involved and understand what people are finding out as innovations, right? There is so much innovation going on in this industry, and thanks to publications like you guys, were allowed to get out some of our voice, but it's really difficult for your voice to be heard. And getting out and meeting with other people who are trying to do good, and learning from others. And I'm a young guy in this industry. Certainly haven't been doing it a long time. There's a lot of people who have been doing it a lot longer than me. Meeting with those people, talking about the challenges that they have, and going back to the drawing board and saying, hey, what can we do to make this guy's life better? What can we do to make his job easier? What can we do to make it safer? That's you got to stay connected to people. People are the most important thing.
Yeah. Speaking of people, a couple personal questions to wrap this up. When you're not working, what do you enjoy doing?
You know what? Being a father of two, a young boy and a young girl, man, I just love spending time with my kids. I played a lot of sports growing up. Now getting to play catch with my son, or run around with my daughter in the backyard. I mean, it just brings back good energy again, and kind of reliving some of those great memories that I have of my youth and athletics. So spending time with my kids and keeping them active is one of the things I really like to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the last question you answered for the 10 to watch was what's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you. So I'll let you take that away here.
Yeah. So I grew up in Akron, Ohio. Playing a lot of basketball. Probably two things people know from Akron is it's the rubber capital of the world, right? Goodyear, Firestone, all come out of that area. And the other thing that a lot of people know about Akron is we have LeBron James.
Yep.
Obviously a big basketball star, and I'm of similar age to LeBron James, and got to play with him growing up. Got to play with him against him in the state tournament. And definitely out rebounded him in the state semifinals game. That's my only claim to fame.
Yeah,
We
you
won't
said
tell,
you go
won't tell you
ahead.
the final score. Won't tell you the final score, but
Well, you said you held him to his season low, so kind of expand a little bit on that. That's because that's what
yeah,
we put in our
yeah,
magazine.
his senior year was quite an exciting time for the city of Akron. Right, he was getting a lot of attention, the chosen one on Sports Illustrated. Right, so playing against him in the state tournament, played in front of 11,000 people in a high school game is absolutely nuts. Having writers and magazine people, ESPN on the floor, shooting the game was again unbelievable. And having a good team event. Defense was my game. I really strived hard to be the best defensive player on the court, and luckily kept him to his season low that year. So that was good.
Season low of how many points?
18. It's not super low for a high school game, but that's low for LeBron James.
Yeah, when he averaged about 35 or 40, I guess so. Now, how he's about 6'8". You almost match up to him height wise. You're a pretty tall guy, aren't you?
I'm 6'4". I'm
Okay.
6'4". He certainly had quite a bit of length and elevation abilities over me for sure.
All right. Now, did you know him? Just a little more question on LeBron. Did you know him when he was like 8 or 10 years old, or did you just know him in high school facing off against him?
No, so the first time I ever ran up against LeBron was at an AAU tournament. I was in 6th grade. He was in 7th grade. People may know the name Maverick Carter, involved in LeBron's entourage. Maverick's brother played on my team, so we got to spend some time together playing basketball growing up. And one of my first experiences was LeBron in 7th grade throwing the ball up off the backboard and going to dunking it. And I'm like, holy cow, 7th grader throwing his own alley-oops, unreal.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. It's always good to hear. I know we could probably talk for 30 more minutes about this, but let's wrap it up here. Jim Huck of Industrial Flow Solutions. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise on inline pumping and also on how you got into the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Drew, it's great, pleasure to be here talking with you. Looking forward to working with you more. Looking forward to get our message out about what Industrial Flow Solutions and Overwatch Direct Inline Pumping does.
Yeah, Industrial Flow Solutions is a great partner with us, advertising and editorial. Looking forward to some more articles in 2023. That'll wrap up this episode of the Pumps and Systems podcast. You can visit us on the web, pumpsandsystems.com/podcast. You can search and subscribe any podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher. I want to thank Jim Huck and want to thank our presenting sponsor, Industrial Flow Solutions. And you can email me, the host, Drew Champlin, DCHAMPLIN at CAHABAMEDIA.com, dchamplin at cahabamedia.com. Till next time, thank you so much for listening.